Okay. What do we assess? Knowledge, skills, and attitudes or values. Very good. And these are outcomes, right? Okay. Why do we do assessment?
Accountability, to maintain the quality.
Right.
Standard.
Yes, so what's the key word? To improve teaching and strengthening learning. Very, very good. Okay, let's get to the how to do an assessment. Remember this figure, this graph, it's the learning process, right? So we do learning outcomes, teaching methods, and assessment. I like what you mentioned, Doctor, that learning outcomes must be aligned with teaching methods and then aligned with assessment. What do we mean by that? We mean that if I let's say learning outcomes, students should be able to, let's say I'm teaching a music class, to play an instrument. And then the assessment is MCQ, it's multiple choice quizzes. It's not aligned, right? If I want them to be able to do something, they should do it, and then it's aligned, okay? This is what we mean by should be aligned. Therefore, let's say if assessment is a person, assessment must reflect the intended learning outcomes. So, if the assessment is a person, and this person has a mirror, or looking at a mirror, what this person will see? Huh?
Space.
Okay, yeah, but what else?
It's more in that particular time.
Huh?
It's more in the particular time. His face shows.
Okay, assessment is a person. So I'm talking about assessment. Assessment is a person. And this person, we call him assessment, has a mirror in his hand and is looking at this mirror. What assessment or this person will see in the mirror? Huh? Yes. Okay. Okay. When we say outcomes should be aligned with assessment, assessment should see outcomes, and outcomes should see assessment. Does that make sense? Okay, again. We said, let's say, my outcome is I want my students to be able to play an instrument. And I'm teaching music, for example. My assessment should be something where I see them play music. Why? It should be aligned. It should be reflected. Should be reflecting the outcome. Okay, so MCQs won't work, right? Okay. How can we do this alignment? In other words, how can we create an assessment process that reflects learning outcomes? By working on the alignment. So I would encourage all of us to attend other workshops or read about the topic that's aligning assessment with learning outcomes. Before we go further, please read this note. It says learning outcomes prescribe what students are expected to demonstrate they have learned. The assessment plan shows how they will demonstrate their learning. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so learning outcomes, we will tell the students, we expect you to be able to do what? Assessment, we will ask the student to show us, okay, that they can do it, or how they will do it. Okay? Okay, good. The assessment design process actually, well, I was talking to the doctor during the break, and of course, assessment takes time. It's not an easy job, okay? It's not something that we can do it quickly, or of course, it takes time. It's sometimes stressful. Sometimes it requires many changes and improvement, of course. But it's part of our responsibilities, okay? So we first do the planning. So we plan. So we should collect some data about our students, about their levels, and about the vision of the institution, etc. After that, we decide on the assessment and start implementing. Is that enough? No. We must review. Well, I don't know any professors, but I hear some professors, they had their assessment since like 10 years ago, okay? They didn't change anything. Okay, that's not good. And then you should improve and go to planning, etc. Okay, how aligning assessment with learning outcomes. As I mentioned before, we can't cover everything about assessment, but I believe this is important, so I'll give you a very good resource. Please, check out page 3 of the handout, okay? Just be ready for it, but before that. So first, you will decide, let's say you teach a course, right? You teach a course. So first, you'll decide on the domains. Remember the 5 domains? You will decide on the domains that you will teach to your students. So here we have the knowledge, cognitive skills, interpersonal skills and responsibilities, etc. After that, next step, to decide on the learning outcomes, okay? And you will write your learning outcomes, you'll write very good learning outcomes based on Bloom's. So if you don't know how to write learning outcomes, you may want to attend some workshops on that. And I believe there is one here within this program. So learning outcomes, so you'll say under the knowledge domain, I have 1, 2, 3 learning outcomes, okay? And you write them based on Bloom's. They just fine and very good, okay? After that, you'll take a step further concerning assessment. So you will think about the method that you will ask your student to show you how they will achieve the learning outcome, okay? And here's the resource that maybe you will need. It's on page 3. So, if you went to page 3, page 3, it says, how will aligned assessments look like? Okay, so let's say the type of learning outcome or objective to recall. So you'll say, I expect my students at the end of this unit, okay, to be able to recall, to recognize, to identify certain things. What assessment methods you can use? It says here, you can do fill in the blank, matching, labeling, or multiple choice questions, etc. Okay? Okay, let's say I want my students to be able to analyze, differentiate, organize, attribute. So you will do case studies, critiques, labs, projects, debates, etc. Okay? The issue that many professors face, that when they say, you know what, I want my students to apply, to be able to apply certain things, and then they will say, you know what, we'll do matching and multiple choice quizzes. That won't work. Does that make sense? No? Yes, yes, it doesn't make sense that they will do multiple choices for applying. Okay, let's say I want my students to be able to create, to plan, to design, to produce. So we'll use, for example, research projects, compositions, performances, essays, business plans, website design, etc. Okay? So we must keep in mind this alignment between the learning outcomes and the assessment methods. Okay. Why this is important? We must understand and know that approaches in education has changed. So in the past, it was objective-based and then competency-based, and today we are in the era of outcomes-based. So set of skills that we want our students to be able to achieve it. How this is related to assessment? Because in the past, scholars, let's say, thought we must see the change, the behavior, to be able to assess it. Okay? So I want my student to do something. I will ask them to do it. I see it, and then I can assess it. That's the behaviorism. And then it developed, improved. And scholars thought, but these cognitive processes that we can't see, right? They're there in their brain, I would say. We can't see it, but of course, there's a way to assess these processes. So it came the cognitivism. And today, we actually went beyond the cognitivism and the behaviorism. As Dr. mentioned, we assess today more complicated skills. Like what? Like leadership, collaboration, communication skills, etc. This is even beyond. It's very complex, I would say. Huh? Of course, competence and teamwork and etc. So it came to the what's called alternative assessment. Okay? Okay. What is alternative assessment versus traditional assessment? Traditional assessment usually is achievement test. However, alternative assessment is more realistic tasks. And it's interesting when some students, when you give them a problem, they will solve it. Let's say mathematical problem, you'll say, for example, example. You'll say 1 plus 2, they will say equals 3. However, when you ask them, give them, for example, a scenario, and he will say, Ahmed went to the supermarket and he bought 2 stuff, and then he returned 1 of them, and then he got other 2 new stuff. They will stuck. Students will not be able to relate to those type of problems. Why? Because they didn't get enough opportunities to practice. Okay? So these are the alternative assessment. Okay, higher order thinking skills in alternative assessment. So the application, creation of stuff, analysis, these higher order thinking skills. The lower order thinking skills in traditional assessment, like to recall, to memorize, to these very low order thinking skills. In the traditional assessment, it's usually what the students know. However, in the alternative, what students can do. It's based on teamwork, continuous process. However, there is more of individual work and non-continuous process. The goal in the traditional assessment is usually is to pass a test, okay, or a quiz or an assessment. However, here is to improve the learning process. Also, of course, the traditional is more easy to create, and the alternative assessment needs planning and preparation. All right. Let's do this activity, please. Well, you just mix your groups. However, let's do it in fives. Okay? So a group of 5 instead of 3. Okay? Let's do this activity. In group, think of 3 alternative assessment methods to evaluate students' knowledge and skills in the 101 shopping course. Remember shopping? Discuss these methods with your group and then share with others. Okay? So let's have a group of 5 here. Of 5, please. Here. Of 5 and then maybe 2 there. Other 2 groups. Okay? Of 5 people within one group. And then give me some examples. Okay. Before you start, I'll need 2 things from each group. 2 things. 1, the learning outcome. So you will say, by the end of this course, I expect my students to be able to something, right? And then the other thing, I need the assessment method that you will use, or the activity that you will ask your students to do. So they show you they achieve the outcome. Any questions? Huh? Yes. It's a shopping course. It's an introduction to shopping. Yes. Yes. Introductory course. Okay? Okay. So first decide on the learning outcome. What do you want your students to be able to do, or to know, or to value, whatever, and then the activity. Okay. Okay, let's do this within maybe 4 minutes or less. But we have a group here. Doctor, what's your name? Doctor, would you face them? Yes, so we make a group. Yes, of 5. Yes, please. Now, you join this group. Yes. 4 people. So we have here and we have.
Let's start with knowledge, then go to the skills. But generally, according to the domain of learning,
Okay, so we have 3 groups here. You're in this group. Okay? I'll ask you.
Okay, check the menu. You have to know how to provide learning outcome.
It's up to you, but I expect 3 alternative assessment ideas for the subject.
Yes. And then to choose.
Huh?
First to list. Then to choose. One to list. Okay. List. Item needed.
That one is about shopping.
Then to choose the right thing according to their need. What another?
Okay, so if you are teaching shopping class, what do you want your students to do?
To be able to compare different to
compare items, but it's shopping class.
compare
Yeah, it will.
whatever. What do you want? Compare with shopping.
Easier.
It's right. This is the most important thing. The ability to re-evaluate and come this way.
we didn't compare the price, but we compare
Two different topics.
the goods, the commodity,
Okay.
the goods, to compare the price and the quality.
كيف نكتب compare
The goods, the law,
طيب goods he wants
and save time.
time management.
If you have a clear idea of the bar, look up the
Come enjoy your they show the process, the
process efficiently.
2 minutes left.
ايش تبغى انت عندكم؟ What do you want? How will you assess? To choose the right way.